Yeah, welcome to the April event for the London developers. We're here tonight. We're going to be hearing from Amnon on his talk, Understanding the Salesforce Security Review. If you enjoy the event, then feel free to tweet. That's our Twitter handle there, London SFDC, and also our Twitter hashtag. So please do share the fact that we're here. We have Success Community Group 2 and also a LinkedIn group. I forgot we have a new LinkedIn group. So if you're on LinkedIn, have a look out for the London Salesforce Developers for a place for chit chat and all that kind of business. Oh, speaking of bit of chit chat, that's where we kind of are, I think. Yeah, feel free to jump in. Excuse me. With anything you fancy talking about. We'll be having more chit chat at the end of tonight's show too. But first of all, we're going to have a bit of community news because it's always changing, right? Before we get onto that, we should say thank you to our sponsors, of course, the wonderful BrightGen, who are facilitating us through their providing us with a Zoom, although possibly could get away with a non-premium account in some nights, and also Mobile Caddy, who will be processing this recording and putting it up onto our YouTube channel as well, which you should also all join and subscribe to. If you search for London Salesforce Developers on YouTube, in fact, I'll post up the links as well in the chat a bit later on too. We've got lots and lots of content up there from some amazing speakers from our community. So subscribe and join us there too. Right, the community news. So there is a bit this month. In fact, there's always a bit, isn't there? Because releases come along several times a year. And speaking of releases, Summer 21 is now in pre-release. It will be in the sandboxes on the 7th of May and prod probably from the 14th. I think there's only one or two orgs that get it before that. So it'll be 14th and the following weekend for most of those. Has anyone dug through the release notes much already? In terms of the dev side, no, I can't see the chatter window for some reason. I don't know if anyone's speaking in the chat. Where is my chat window? Oh, there it is. No one else. The only thing that really kind of caught my interest, and that's just because I'm really excited to get to play with it, is Functions, which apparently is going to be in beta post the release, going GA. I think it was also said it would be go post the release of Spring. I mean, they're not lying, right? It's, I guess they've covered the backs there. You will get Functions after summer. I'm hoping it's fairly soon. Somebody think that maybe it was being lined up to coincide with DX as well, which is coming on later this year. Also, our May event. Make sure you join our Trailblazer community group. We've got a May event will be on Apex performance from the wonderful Paul Batterson, talking about how you can improve your Apex performance of your Apex, which I think people really need to be paying attention to, especially in a world of multi-tenant environments. The RSVPs will be open for that in due course. And Dreamforce, there was mention that potentially in-person event is the target. I think that's right. Did I hear that right? And the dates for that at the moment are the 21st to the 24th of September.
They were saying in-person event, but California laws would suggest that only if you're fully vaccinated.
Right. Okay. And I guess that then brings into the whole world of having some kind of COVID passport or verification of that internationally as well. So, yeah.
Salesforce haven't confirmed that, have they? It's somebody who books for the Moscone Centre has said that that's what they're trying to do at the moment.
Oh, right. I heard it was from the Salesforce internally, but no. Okay. Right. Well, that might be happening. I mean, I don't know. Would anyone be going to that? I would give it a miss, I think.
I think we'll get invites, to be honest, Todd.
Yeah, I think it'll be California resident.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be Dreamforce. I think it'll be something. It might be branded as Dreamforce, but it won't be Dreamforce as we know it.
No. Yeah. Well, I'd be-
2022 it is.
yeah. Even if I was invited, I think I'd give it a skip at the moment. But other things that are happening that I probably will be attending, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out this time around. Is Trailhead X is scheduled for June 23rd. RSVPs are open now for that, and you go to salesforce.com/trailheadx. I don't believe there's any specifics on sessions yet about what's going to be there, but yeah, perhaps we'll have lots of function stuff there if summer will be live earlier that month, perhaps. Yeah, that's the community news. I don't know if anyone wants to have a shout out to anything else that might be going on they're aware of that we've missed, any other events, things we should be keeping an eye out for.
No, Tahoe Dreamin' is, doing it in person in October.
Oh, yes.
In California. So we've sponsored and registered for that, and we'll keep our fingers crossed if it goes through. But that's obviously a community event, so I mean, I can see how they would go in person before Dreamforce would potentially.
Yeah.
So things
Texas
are opening up a
Dreaming
little.
too in Austin. That's going ahead in
Which
person.
other one, sorry?
Texas Dreaming in Austin. Austin's going ahead.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't see that idea. What date's Texas Dreaming? Is that?
I don't have the date in front of me. I know we're sponsors. That's all.
Right. Wow. And Florida Streaming, Lorinda says. Wow. Whew. I did hear. I think that Czech Dreaming is postponing any physical event till 22. Don't think they're doing anything this year. I don't know of any others. Oh, Dream LA also postponed, didn't they? They tweeted out saying they're not happening. So unfortunately, yeah, that's the current state of play. It'd be interesting to see if these in-person events can go ahead. I hope they do. I hope they're a real big success. But
Looks like Texas Dream is July 8th and 9th. So
really,
which is pretty cavalier, but we'll see what happens.
it is. Oh well. Good luck to them, I say.
On that subject, Todd, how are the videos for London's Calling going? I haven't seen those come out.
No, the videos. So if you attended London's Calling, you had a ticket for London's Calling, you can get access still to all the videos on demand. They're all still available if you're a ticket holder. I think you can still buy a ticket if you didn't get it now. If you wanted to see the content, it's only a £5 and there's like 60 odd sessions.
Not going public then.
They will be public soonish. All the content is ready. Yeah, we're just making sure that paying folk get the value for their money, I guess. So yeah, that's the state of play with London's Calling. For people who don't know, London's Calling is a community event held here in the UK that occurred in March, and that was a fully virtual event, like Cactus Force and non-profit Dreaming went really well. Right, good question though, Richard. And I think then, if Amnon is set to go, we can hit on to our. I mean, I don't think I put any times on the agenda, which is good because I wasn't paying attention. But 6:25 sounds like a perfect time to start.
Such a round hour, 6:25.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to stop sharing now and pass over to the main attraction for tonight.
And now I am going to press that share sound button that Zoom lets us do, which I very appreciate. I very much appreciate that function on Zoom because not a lot of other ones do it. And today we are going to be talking about the Salesforce Security Review. Yeah, see, kids are coming down the stairs now. So I mentioned earlier that my daughter hates this session in particular. So if I start laughing, you know why. For those of you who are here for the first time or just don't know who I am, my name is Amnon Kruvy. I'm a Salesforce developer, an architect, 14 certifications. I deal with scheduling apps on Salesforce. I deal with dates and times like shift management and tasks and classes and stuff like that. But that's not interesting as what we have on the agenda today. And we're going to be talking about the various stages of the security review from basic design, an idea, to passing it. So you want to build an app, and sorry, let me do it with the chair. Hold on. Chair is backwards. It's a bit too big, but pretend I'm doing like Captain America. So you want to build an app, and these days, really anyone can build an app. You don't even have to be a developer. Now, I know this is the developer group, and most of us are, but you can be an admin, and you can make something with a flow and package it up in a package and release that as an app if you've done something really cool with it. You don't necessarily need to code. So a lot more people have started creating apps. And when you do create this app and you want to sell it, you don't actually have to sell it on the AppExchange. If you want, you can just, sell your app. No one tracks everything that's being installed on every single org, and you can sell what you want. But listing on the AppExchange does have some advantages. For example, well, you get the exposure that comes from the official Salesforce App Store. You get tools to manage licenses. For example, sorry, can you take them away? They're a bit noisy. You get all these tools to manage licenses. So, for example, if a client decides not to pay, you can just shut them down. Right? Oh, you can increase licenses, you can decrease, make whatever changes you need. You get support from Salesforce through your partner account managers, and the customers get that trust that your app has been reviewed, that that you kind of know what you're doing, at least. And if you've ever tried installing an application that hasn't been reviewed, if you tried installing a managed package, it actually gives you a warning, and you have to tick a box saying that you understand that this app could be complete garbage because no one ever looked at it. And you don't want your client seeing that kind of warning. However, listing on the AppExchange and going through a security review does require some investment, both in time and financial, because the security review is not free. In fact, if you're just starting something up, and you don't have funding or financial backing, it can be quite a lot of money. It's like $2,500, which is not small change for a lot of people. And the most important thing that scares people off the security review is it's just the fact that you are going to get reviewed. It's scary. When people hear about the security review, they're thinking negative thoughts. They get negative emotions about people finding problems with what they wrote, about having to redo things, about having to maybe completely redesign features that are inherently insecure. And that scares people. But I'm here today to show you that the security review is not something to be scared of. It's something to appreciate. It's something that has a positive impact on the ecosystem as a whole, and that passing it should be a goal for all of us, regardless of what we're trying to achieve. And to drive this point, I just thought I'd make a little something just to help people remember, right? And let me know if you can hear it. Feel free to join me. I want to make a brand new app that no one did. But can I get myself listed up on the AppExchange? Or will my code break when we make sure it's up to par? I learned the hard way to let me make my app go far. Security review won't let you stray too far from best practice. Security review is there to help and make sure that your clients don't get hurt. Security review enhances confidence, not just by you, but everyone around you. Security review, don't be afraid. I need to make a big financial investment to even start writing documents, even if it takes a lot of time. And every change I scan again with the tool from check marks. My app can't possibly pass if it wasn't that secure to start with. Security review won't let you stray too far from best practice. Security review is there to help and make sure that your clients don't get hurt. Security review enhances confidence, not just by you, but everyone around you. Security review, don't be afraid. I watched it fail, not handle, scale, or expose the wrong field. I was so young, I did not know what a script reflection means. I never thought to also test APIs it's using. And now I cry 'cause I'm gonna have to write more false positives. Security review won't let you stray too far from best practice. Security review is there to help and make sure that your clients don't get hurt. Security review, I try my hardest just to document everything. Security review, but when I'm done, my app will be the next big thing. Security review will make me proud of my app. Just need to pass it. Security review, don't be afraid. Security review, security review, That's how I like to open up my sessions.
Yay!
Hope you all didn't go deaf, because there is more. So, what is this security review thing that I keep chatting on about? I keep saying those words, but what is it? So the process of the security review is where you have your application looked at by actual people, not machines, well, also machines, also software, but actual people who try to make sense of what you've done, and they look for vulnerabilities. Some of the most common things that people fail on are things like object and field and record level security checks. So if your app exposes information without checking profile permissions, or if you use without sharing and you don't have a good reason to do that, well, you're gonna fail. They're gonna find that, and they're gonna make sure that you adhere to these practices. They also try and target you with a bunch of standard cybersecurity attacks, things like reflected scripts, right? Reflected XSS, stored XSS. That's when you that's where you have a JavaScript code in, for example, a field in someone's name, and then your application reflects that code and actually executes it. Obviously, if those things can happen, then an attacker can take advantage of it and expose other data. Because we're talking about Salesforce, where you have a lot of financial information, that can be quite disastrous. Now, I can go on and on about the different types of attacks that you can try on an application, but we only have like 45 minutes today, and this would need like a 3 to 5 hour session to review literally every kind of vulnerability. But Salesforce do offer a very handy guide as to what they're looking for, what steps to take to mitigate it, and it's also on Trailhead, so you can actually try out yourself different scenarios and correct them. And they have all the checks there, so you can make sure you did it the right way. They also check for best practices. So if you do things that you're not supposed to in general, things that break governor limits potentially in large data volumes, you might fail on those as well, because they actually put information in a test environment and they see how the app runs. So also make sure to adhere to just standard developer best practices. And a very common problem is when people need to decide when they actually have to fix their app to be secure. And it's a very common problem for people to only look at their security efforts right before they submit for security review. And that means you have to go backwards through your entire code, your entire design for your application, and start fixing things. And by default, that means in all likelihood, you're going to miss some. And if you miss one, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it in several places. And each time you miss something, you're going to have to do the whole review again. So if you ask me, and if you can take just one bit home with you tonight, it should be that you should take security into account at every single stage of your development cycle. When you design new features, you think, how can this be targeted? When you build the features, make sure to check for profile permissions whenever you expose information. And if you don't check for permissions, and that can be a valid case, you might not always need to check for permissions. Make sure that you document it, that you comment it, that you leave some trace that this is why you are breaking these security practices. When you test, also try testing with other profiles, especially if you do manual testing. Have a restricted user in your dev org where you can test to see what happens when a user does not have profile permissions to create a record. And when you create automatic tests, you can use system run as in your unit tests to run as a different user with a different profile. So there is no excuse not to check these things. Obviously, when you evaluate your results, again, you start coming up with attacks to see how your users actually use these features. How can it be broken? Because they will try and break it. And if you haven't tried to break it first, they will succeed. And you're going to see this quite a lot, because it's enough for them to find one single mistake in your app, and you failed the review and you have to start all over again. And you get to fix it, but if you fix it and you missed something else, then you're going to fail again. You're going to have to fix that other thing and then resubmit and fix the next thing and the next thing. And each review takes a minimum of 2 weeks. Each review is between 2 and 4 weeks before you even get a reply. So if you leave it up to the last minute, you're going to find yourself waiting weeks and months before you can pass your review. And if you're trying to release a new app, that can be quite devastating. And if you're re-reviewing your app, they actually give you a deadline for when you have to pass it. Not a very strict deadline, but a deadline nonetheless. But why do we need a security review? Right? How many people here are cybersecurity experts? Raise your hands. You know I can't see. You've got your cameras off. How? Put your hands down. Yeah, we got one. Right. So if you're a cybersecurity expert, you should know that vulnerabilities change all the time. Right? Every day you read on the news about some new 0-day, some new thing that someone's exploiting. If it just a few weeks ago there was a giant hack with Outlook servers, with Exchange servers. Sorry, Exchange, right? And that's Microsoft. They should know about security, and yet their services were attacked because people discover new vulnerabilities all the time. So if you're not a cybersecurity expert, you want people who are not yourself, who are not your own team, people with a fresh mindset to look at what you've built and try to find vulnerabilities. Because if you don't find those vulnerabilities and they happen to be exploited in real life for a real customer later on, well, I'll ask you this. Anyone here knows the name SolarWinds? Anyone heard of them? Yeah, I'd imagine. If you haven't heard of them, well, I'm surprised because you're not watching any sort of tech news. They're a cybersecurity company whose products were hacked by apparently Russia. And a lot of companies, they supply to governments. And I have a feeling that after this giant hack, they're not going to be selling a lot more in the future. So even one event like this, if it's big enough, can completely destroy you as a business. But not just you, because it's Salesforce as well. When someone installs an application from the AppExchange or on the Salesforce platform, a lot of the time they don't even realize that it's a different, separate application. They just see it as Salesforce. A little anecdote from my own personal bubble. My dad worked on Salesforce, and when he heard that I started working with it, he told me, why do you even bother? It's such a bad system. And I told him, it's not a bad system. You had a bad implementation. And that's because users don't really understand what's custom and what's out of the box. And the things that you do in your apps are going to carry on with those users and their opinions of Salesforce. And if that's not enough for you, well, we live in an age of data protection. We have GDPR, we have American data protection laws, right? Every country is enforcing that you take every measure possible to make sure people's data is secure. And if something does happen, then, well, security review is just another tick box in the list of saying, look, I've done what I could to protect everyone's data. There was nothing I could have done to prevent this. And if you don't do it, well, people can look and accuse you of not taking those steps. So really, a security review is something that is not only positive, not only something that you should do, but it's something that you really need to do to protect yourself as a business, protect your customers, and protect your own reputation. And this is the general process behind going through the review. So when you try to submit a new application, you register as an ISV partner, you have to submit a business plan. That part can actually take a few weeks until it's approved. The business plan has to show that you have an idea that can generate revenue. So you do have to think about that part. You can't just write something over a weekend and expect for it to be sold on the AppExchange. Even if you've taken security into account in every step of the way, before submitting to the review, you still want to review your code, because there are things that you didn't think of back when you wrote them or back when you designed them, and just looking at them again from a fresh perspective will help you discover those issues. Even for me, when I went through my security review, I was sure that I had everything nailed down. And lo and behold, I actually found a vulnerability in my own application when reviewing the code for the security review. And I was sure I wouldn't find anything because I always kept my documents up to date and the designs and all that stuff, but I still found something. And everything that you do find and you're planning on keeping for various reasons, you can have things that are less secure, but for a good reason. You want to write inside a document. So you need to submit your technical documentation. You need to submit a false positives document. That's where you write all of the things that you expect them to find. So if you used without sharing in an Apex class, but you need to do that in order to achieve your goal, then you note that down. Anything that comes up from the checkmark scanner and you want to keep, you note that down in the document. They will read the document. They will link it to the correct vulnerability. And but if you try to bullshit them, they'll also know. So don't just list everything. You fix what you can. Once you've prepared all your documents, you need to create a demo environment. So once you've registered as an ISV partner, you get the environment hub. You can create a new Salesforce org. You can install your application, prepare some data, just configure the whole thing. Because they will be using that environment to try and break your app. So they will do a whole bunch of things. They'll create contacts, for example, with JavaScript in their names, just to see what happens, for giggles. And if that script reflects, if that script is actually executed, they're going to fail you because that's reflected. That's stored XSS. They're going to check your input parameters, your query parameters, when you load a custom page that receives a parameter from the URL. they're going to put JavaScript in there as well and see what happens. Once you're ready, you've tested everything, you've prepared an environment, then you can submit a case. Well, you need to submit a form, you fill in all the details, you give all the documents, and then you submit a case to have the review actually started. Then you wait, receive your feedback, fix whatever they found wrong, and resubmit. That's the general idea behind it. It's not that scary. Just have to do a lot of preparation work. And here's how you prepare your application. First thing, the most common reason for failing, at least for me in my background, was just permission checks. If you do any query, if you update any record, if you create any record, if you delete records, anything that you do in your code, in your flow, anything, just check for permissions before you do it. I know it's annoying. It adds a lot of ifs and kind of ruins the look of the code, but it does help the application perform better for different types of users who might not have full accessibility. Also try and create some graceful handling for these events. So don't just crash the whole thing if a user doesn't have permission to one field that they can do without. Try to implement graceful handling of permissions. Do a search in your code for the keywords without sharing. Anything that you find, you have to explain in your false positives document, because anything that uses without sharing ignores a very important security mechanism in Salesforce. So you have to explain exactly why you're doing it, and you have to come up with a very good excuse. If you have any data that should not be exposed to anyone, not even the system admin, things like API keys, passwords, just very sensitive information, you can use protected custom settings. There are a few other tricks, but I prefer custom settings because not even a system admin can see protected custom settings from a managed package. Only your application code can interact with them. Also, for those orgs that have encryption, there are some restrictions on encrypted fields. So you can't sort by them, you can't filter by them. So you can check whether a field is encrypted and take that into account in your code. Especially if you allow for things that are dynamic, where a customer can choose which fields they want to work with. So we spoke a little bit about scripts. These are the kind of attacks that they're going to try on your data. So they're going to try to rename people to script alert hello, and then open up those records in your application. Make sure that check whether the script actually executes. One of the ways when this happens is if you use inner HTML in your JavaScript. Inner HTML is evil. On the one hand, it lets you creates a whole page dynamically in JavaScript. But on the other hand, it lets an attacker embed code into it, embed whatever they want into it, an iframe with tracking, JavaScript code, anything that they want, CSS, they can just embed into it. And if you use inner HTML for anything, that those attacks could be reflected. Obviously, I'd imagine most of you know what query injection is. That's where you put, for example, quotes, single quotes inside a parameter that's being sent to the server that breaks the query up into multiple queries, and then you can basically change what's actually sent to the database. Salesforce gives very easy tools for handling query injections, but sometimes we still need to build a query using strings. And if you build a query using strings, you got to make sure to encode everything that goes in there. Don't allow quotes, don't allow semicolons, don't allow any special characters that could interfere with the query. Also, if you build a select statement in a string with a dynamic object name, you can verify that it's a valid object. You can use schema, get schema describe. to get the entire object list in the database and make sure that the object that you're supposed to query actually exists. Lastly, anything that might upset Lightning Locker. I like the word upset because Lightning Locker is a concept more than it is a very strict set of rules. The idea is that your components don't affect other components on the Lightning page. So it's very easy for me to create a component that loads a CSS file that changes SLDS classes. But if I do that, I will fail the security review. Other ways that you can upset Lightning Locker is to create a style tag in your application. Because style tags and script tags are not pre-processed by Salesforce, then you can put whatever you want in them. You can create rules and scripts that do anything you want, even affect other components. And that breaks the whole idea behind components, behind you doing your own thing and other components doing their own thing, and they will never meet unless they are specifically designed to interact with one another. Then we have our false positives document. So a part of the security review, Salesforce offer us this tool, this code scanner from Checkmarx. It gives us a whole bunch of results. Some of them may be valid security concerns that you need to fix. Other ones might be false positives. You need to list everything in your scan that you didn't fix. And well, you actually need to fix it, run a new scan, and then submit that in your security review process. So everything that's on the scan has to be listed in the false positives document. List every instance of without sharing and explain why you're doing it, how you've mitigated the vulnerability. Anything that you're not sure of, list it anyway. Worst that can happen is they'll say, yeah, this is fine. This is unacceptable. Please change the way it works. List it. And always think about whether or not there is a better way of implementing those things that would not raise security concerns in the first place. Todd, do we want to do 2 quizzes with a break in the middle, or do we want to have just one long one?
Oh, good question. Let's have one long one if that's good with you. That's how I've set it up at the moment. So if that's good with you.
So this is what my false positives document looks like. Basically just a Word document. I put a version number, and you'll see that I have different headers for the different sections of the checkmark scan. So the scan gives you different vulnerabilities by category. So for each category, I've listed the category itself. So FLS create, meaning you don't check for create permission on the profile before you create a record. And then I listed the path, the individual vulnerabilities that the scan found, and then the reasoning behind why this is working as intended, as opposed to something that needs to be rejected. Now, if you use any sort of external APIs, if your application communicates with anything outside of Salesforce, or even with Salesforce, because Salesforce also offers APIs, you need to make sure to scan and review those as well. Depending on the type of API, you have different tools to do it. If you have something on a server that you do not control, let's say you use a Google API, so Maps API, then you can use Zap to basically record your network traffic. So you send some postman messages, to the API, Zap records the network traffic and gives you a report as to what information goes out and goes back in. So you need to include those Zap reports if you use any sort of API that you do not control. If you have an API that you do control, maybe on Heroku, on a server that you can actually put things on, then they have Chimera, which is a more powerful tool that can check for various other vulnerabilities on the server side that you need to include in your report. Again, test it manually. I'm sure Richard is kind of screaming in his head, what do you mean manual testing? Everything should be automated. Yes, automated testing is great, but also manually test it, because no automated test can ever look at absolutely everything. So do try it yourself. Put yourself in the shoes of the reviewer and just try to break your stuff. Don't broadcast passwords if you can. So one of the reasons I failed once was because I had a mobile app. That application allowed users to log in with a username and password. Now, you don't want the user to enter their password each time they log into the application, right? You want the app to log in by itself the next time they do it. So I thought I was being clever, and I saved the username and the password locally in the app storage. Turns out anyone can look into that. Turns out I can take your phone, plug it into my computer, and just get your password from there. Because that's how phones are built. Any device that you can have physical access to cannot be trusted. And the solution to that was to implement OAuth authentication. And instead of saving a username and password, you save a refresh token in storage. And a refresh token can be used to create a session. And then even if an attacker gets that refresh token, they only get a temporary token. They get temporary access to the service. They don't get unlimited access, which is the real issue. Again, when it comes to communicating over the internet, always use encryption, always use HTTPS. If you send anything over HTTP, you're going to fail. In fact, I think both Android and iOS no longer even allow to communicate over HTTP by default, unless you build your application with like a really low API version. So this is actually enforced if you use a mobile app, but you should implement it everywhere. Nothing should ever make calls over HTTP. And if you're not sure, write it down. That's what the false positives document is for. You write down what you did, why you did it, how you mitigated any possible risks. And if they feel that it's good enough, then you'll pass. Next, we got to prepare a test org. Yeah, you use your environment hub that you receive as an ISV, as a partner. You create a new org. Don't expect to be able to reuse that org later, because if you remember, I mentioned that they're going to create a whole bunch of junk data. People with scripts in their names, users that make absolutely no sense. They're going to trash it. They're going to play around with it like it's their own personal sandbox. They're going to trash all the data you have in there. So don't use any existing org, for example, a demo org that you use for demonstrating to clients, because it's not going to be pretty. So make a brand new one. Just ignore it, pretend that it's dead afterwards. You need to create a user for the review team so they can log in. If you can, create different profiles to showcase how your app will be used. And keep a user for yourself, because you're going to need to go into that org to set it up. If they have any questions, if they have any, or if you fail the review, you're going to have to maybe see what they did in there. You do need to prepare sample data. And if you're not sure about anything regarding the process, Salesforce actually let you consult with them. So if you ask your PAM, you can actually get just a consultation with Salesforce before you do your review, where you can ask questions and maybe find solutions before you go through that 2 to 4 week process. Now that we're ready, you can actually submit your application. There's a big form to fill. Honestly, you go to the partner portal, you fill in a form, you upload your documents, and you pay your fee. If your app is free, you don't have to pay a fee. But if your app is not free, there is a fee. There is a yearly fee for being listed on the AppExchange. It's only like $150, I think. The security review itself is $2,500. So yeah, if you have any trouble filling in the form, let's just say you have bigger things to worry about, right? It's quite an easy form. Some people have had problems with it. They were trying to, they were making this new kind of fancy form, and people were having problems with uploading documents. I only had very minor ones where it said that they accepted zip files, but they didn't really accept zip files. Okay, so they didn't accept zip files. I survived. And then you wait. You wait a week, you wait 2 weeks, you wait 3, 4 weeks until you finally hear from them. Don't expect anything until at least a minimum of 2 weeks, and that's assuming you have a very small application. My reviews usually came back after 4. So that's kind of the time frame you have to set aside for this. And one of 2 things will happen. You might pass, and then you're finished, congratulations, or you might fail. If you do fail, they will tell you why. They will say, we found this vulnerability. But once they found this one vulnerability, they will stop checking. So you will have to fix that vulnerability and then resubmit. But if there are other problems in your app, you're going to fail again, and you're going to have to wait another 2 to 4 weeks. So if you do fail it once, don't just fix the one thing they tell you. You have to put some effort into it. You have to spend the time, review your application again, see if you can find any similar errors to what they found, and only then resubmit it. Believe me, the 1 week that you spend reviewing your application is still less time than waiting another 4 weeks to get another failure. It's worth it. And actually, I wanted to include an actual email that I received from Salesforce, just so you know what to expect when you fail a review. So this is a real email, okay? I got it about last year, no, in 2019, when I tried my first security review. I did fail it once, I'll admit. And it goes like this. This is the email. I'm making a note here, huge success. You only have to fix 300 problems. We ran the code scanner and saw that you use SOQL. Even though you checked for CRUD, you didn't test field access. Here's a document and a link to the help page. Please fix all of this to advance to the next stage. Cause we looked at your class and we broke it like glass. And that means that your app didn't pass. That's the actual email. Please don't get angry. We already tried to break your code by entering HTML data. So now you have contacts called bracket script alert quote 1. Good luck trying to use this org if you've got demos to run. We're just making sure that you've protected your code. This script reflects you give the hackers God mode. Cause this platform is SaaS, so we gotta be crass. And that means that your app didn't pass. Now I know what you're thinking. Why should I care to check for CRUD? This object just contains configuration. So make us a file, a document called false positives. List your users one by one. Better not skip a thing. Looking at this list, it actually feels pretty nice. You learned a lot by reading all our advice, so we hope you have apps didn't pass. Proper disclaimer, this wasn't actually the email they sent me. Yeah, theirs was a bit more wordy with actual words, less singing. Yes, so you fix things, you go through that loop, and eventually you're gonna get through it, because there's only so many ways that you can break an application. And you guys are intelligent people. You know how to write code, you know how to build an application, and you can understand when someone teaches you about a vulnerability. So really, it's only a matter of time, and you can retake it until you pass. You don't have to repay the license fee each time. And once you've done it, well, you get to rest a little bit. You get this kind of email, right? Congratulations, you passed. And if you look at this date, this says March 18th, 2021. This is literally from a month ago, because as I was writing this presentation, I actually got an email from Salesforce saying, you got to re-review your application that's already passed 2 years ago. And I thought, well, that is excellent timing. And I was happy to take it. You see, they send you an email like this. They actually give you a deadline. So they say you have to do it in 60 days or you get taken off the AppExchange. So you gotta actually fix it in time, redo it. And it's not that painful, because if you've taken my advice and you've kept building your application in a secure manner, taking into account vulnerabilities in all the various development stages, you'll do just fine. You won't need to spend a lot of time doing it, and you can just you can take it as yet another positive check that you're doing things correctly. And if you haven't done things correctly, then it's a good thing that you can fix them now, that Salesforce actually caught it and not some government hacker who's targeting your client. Any questions? And let's open the chat as well.
Amnon, package versions. When you update your package version in AppExchange, used to be the case that you had to click. You used to think, oh no, it's asked me to hit review again, but it was an empty process. It just automatically updated. Is that still the case?
That is still the case, yes. So if you release a new package version and you want that package version to be the one people install on the AppExchange, then you do need to review that particular package version. But it's not really a review. It's an automatic yes. There's no guarantee to the length of time that you can get these automatic passes. I think they say they guarantee it for a year, but I know from a friend of mine that it's not necessarily the case, because he had to review his app after 6 months. My understanding is that it's to do with how many versions you actually release. So if you release 5 versions a year, you're probably going to be able to get by on a single review for a long time. But if you release 70 versions a year, you might be asked for to perform a re-review sooner rather than later.
There was just one point on that reference to 2GP. So with 2GB packages, only packages that have got an ancestor that's passed can be submitted, and will get the passed automatically. So if you break the ancestry, that will need to go through a new security review. Something to definitely be aware of, because you can break ancestry by accident and then enter a world of pain that you don't want.
Well, 2GP is kind of a world of pain in and of itself, isn't it?
I think also Salesforce has increased their security team, and they seem to be now doing reviews after almost 18 months, as I've heard. Previously, I think it used to be years.
Yeah. So on one app where I did the review, on my first one, it literally took 5 years until they asked for another one. But on my current app, I released it in 2019. That's when I passed the first security review, I think around May 2019. And now again, I got that email in March 2021. So that fits your timeline, absolutely.
What about software composition analysis? Is that part of the formal security review process?
Well, define software composition analysis exactly, because
Looking
there
at
are
third-party
Sorry?
software libraries like jQuery and things like that you may use in your app.
Yep. So anything external, any libraries do, I believe they do get tested, or at least compared against the list of big ones. That's because you can also, you can create your own library files and put whatever you want in them. You can even modify a library and put whatever you want in it. So I do believe that libraries are tested, or at least I treat them as they are. And it does need to be part of your technical documentation. I think they do ask for a list of any third-party libraries that you use.
Yeah, can confirm they use
Yeah.
a variety of registries of third-party libraries of known vulnerabilities. So if you were using jQuery from, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, that's got known vulnerabilities, and they won't pass your app. You need to be all up and with zero vulnerabilities against, is it Sync and Retire.js, and they use other tools like that to monitor those. Good tip there is don't have your own libraries named something similar to a big library that's got a known vulnerability, because they can they can mistakenly pull you up on that too.
Right. So I see a question from Narendra asking, why do they ask for a re-review, and is it random? So it's a very, very simple reason, because I can release an app today, which is perfectly secure, and then I can add a new feature to that app after I've passed the review that is less secure. And then my app as a whole is no longer secure. So this periodic review process helps ensure that your app is still good enough for clients to use. And as for whether or not it's random, they claim, but I suspect there is some sort of profiling going on in the background to do with number of releases, maybe number of users. I'd imagine maybe some of the top applications don't have to go through as many reviews as some of the smaller ones. But yeah, nothing we can control really. When it's your time, it's your time. Any other questions?
I have a question. What's your experience with Zap or Chimera? Like,
so Zap, it took me a while to understand what Zap is and why we need to use it. It's only after I failed that that mobile application years and years ago with the password thing that I actually understood the value of Zap. Because really, it's just a network sniffer. It lets you trace everything that goes to and from certain endpoints. And even if your application is not on the PC, if it's on a mobile device, you can still set a proxy. So all your network traffic still goes through Zap. And you can actually see what goes out there, and you can see the vulnerabilities with your own two eyes. So as far as experience, I have used it, yes, bit more than I'd like. It's not very easy, but once you install it and get the hang of it, you understand how to use it. As for Chimera, I didn't actually get to use that because my application doesn't have anything on servers that I control. But my understanding is that it's a tool that you can actually run on the server. So hopefully you get some better results, some more accurate result, like the frameworks that you're using. If you're using an outdated Node.js framework, then you might get flagged up for that. Other things that you can't just see by sending an API request to an endpoint.
So Amnon, do you ever sleep? That's my question, because you're
No.
the number one answer on the AppExchange, and then you're writing these. I know how long it takes for a presentation together, and yours has songs and everything, and then you're writing an app and running an ISV, and it just, how many Amnons are there?
Just the one, I'm afraid. But the answer to your question is actually no, I don't sleep. I've been suffering from insomnia since 2017. That's not a joke. Funny, but not a joke. So I stay awake at night on my phone to answer questions and to think about stuff. And
Wow.
I try to stay in bed. I don't code at nighttime, but yeah.
Crazy.
How's the latest clone coming on, Amnon?
Having a baby doesn't help either because she wakes up and and then she tries to lay horizontally in bed, in our bed, of course. So one of us always gets the foot end of the baby, and then she starts kicking for no reason. So we get slammed in the head several times a night.
They all do that. Yeah. I
Kids
remember.
are fun.
There was a follow-up question from Chris in the channel about Zap about how does Zap intercept traffic encrypted with TLS?
You know what? That's a very good question. Zap is effectively a proxy server. So the network traffic that comes to and from it is captured before or after the in an unencrypted form. At least from what I've seen, I'm sure that there are other ways where that you can encrypt. If you create your own encryption, for example, use your own protocols, I'm sure that you can encrypt it even from Zap. But effectively, it's the network traffic has to go through it, and it sees all.
Oh, I'll have to read up. I don't understand that either, but I'll have to. We didn't have to use Zap for our one time. Not FA. Zap.
But you have a mobile app, Todd.
Yeah, it's not part of the. Didn't form part of the security review though.
Okay.
Which was handy. Chris, does that answer your question? I'm thinking possibly that because the traffic's encrypted and Zap's sitting in the middle, that it would be.
Well, Zap sits before the request actually goes out, I think.
Oh, okay, right. Maybe I'm unsure what Zap is then. Cool. Yeah. Any other questions? I'll swear.
Here's a hard one. I see on the payment screen there's a coupon box. Has anyone got a coupon code for a discount?
We shall see if we can get one for the next quiz prize, Richard.
You know what? That would have been a great prize for this quiz.
It would have been, yeah.
They don't give it to us lowly community groups, I'm afraid.
No, a coupon box. No.
But you know, when they reopen the Salesforce Tower, maybe you can find someone to schmooze and get a coupon out of there.
Yeah. Should we see if anybody else on the call has been through security review and have any other tips or things of note they experience?
I will say one of the things that always makes me despair is all the non-technical questions. Like the trick is to just answer them honestly, and if they've got a problem, they'll come back. So, do you have an ISO 27000 policy? Do you have a data retention policy? Do you have? If the answer is no, don't say yes if you don't have one. It's okay to say no. It's not a fail question.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with not having an ISO certification. It's okay. You won't fail over it. I'd imagine, though, they need it for some things like government. But they need to know these things about the application in case they have any government clients that need particular certifications.
I am worried about the question that says, does Salesforce use your application as a customer? I've now got to tick that box, and now what they're going to tell them.
I'll add a couple of things. So our entire company exists because we used to or my CEO and I used to work on projects for companies that failed AppExchange review. And if you fail it, I don't know what the policy are now, but it used to be like if you failed it so many times or whatever, you would have to hire a specific, shortlisted consulting company to do a full pen test on your app and get a clean bill of health. And so that was much more expensive than the security review fee. And I think that's what inspired our founder to create our platform to help people, not just developers with security reviews, but also people looking to secure their org. But yeah, it's hard, man. I mean, but if you follow the steps, and I thought it was a great presentation I'm on, just to go through everything that needs to be done. And I was happy to see you cover Zap and Chimera a bit too, because that can be important for people. We offer a free trial scan. So if anybody's going through this process and they want to do one outside scan just for free before they submit for one last check, we don't give you the details for free, but we'll tell you if you have any bugs left over that you somehow missed. And if you're a partner or in the community, we'll certainly we'll work with you to make sure that we give you as much information as we can. But anybody can go to digitsec.com and run a free scan that does a source code scan and a runtime scan and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these automated tools are invaluable when you have a very large code base.
Yeah.
Because no one person can really understand everything that goes into an entire system with multiple components, and really understand the security implementation that each one of them has. So automated tools should definitely be part of the process, a regular part. So not just before you submit for security review, but every week, every month, create a schedule where you normally review your applications for issues. And Salesforce does provide the checkmark scanner, which is free, but I'd imagine would yield fewer results or a different kind of results than what some of the private applications would flag up.
Shannon, I ran your product on the SDO org from Salesforce and it found a lot of problems in it. You'll be pleased to hear.
Oh, really? Is that the org that's supposed to be clean?
Well, it's the one that every Salesforce SE is using, so yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to be clean though from their point of view. Yeah, we've been doing security for 20 years, so we kind of came to this ecosystem 10 years ago, helping people that failed security reviews. And I never saw a pen test that didn't result in God level access, total compromise of the full application and all the data in it. 90% of reviews in and out of Salesforce are usually like that. So, security is never an end goal. It's just a process, right? And like Aman talked about, a lot of good processes. And the more of those processes you can integrate into your development pipeline and make it a normal part of your process, the easier things like security review and the easier it'll be to sleep at night.
Yeah. At the end of the day, there is no such thing as true security on the internet.
Right.
It doesn't exist. It's a
Yep.
myth. If Russia state actors want to breach your data, they will, because they'll find very creative ways.
And they'll meet you at a bar and become your best friend. And when you go to the bathroom, they'll hack your phone. So I mean, there's always a way.
Now they can hijack your mobile number to get verification codes, to get two-factor authentication codes to their own devices, and you won't even know that it happened.
Yeah, security is a never-ending black hole. But if you put good processes in place, like Aman outlined today, you're definitely ahead of the pack, and that's the goal.
The idea is to make it too difficult for them to be worth their time.
Make them pick a different target, just like your house.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Couldn't have said it better.
So I
Love the
just
songs too, man. Great songs. This is a scary topic, but when you can make it sound like it's a children's nursery rhyme that everyone wants to sing along with, hey, it's fun. That's what we like to do with security, is try to gamify it, make it an educational process, empower the developers, empower the admins to understand what's going on, how to fix it, and then, like you said, do it less likely in the future, right? To do it again.
You should check out my other songs then, because there's like Frozen songs.
My girls will love those.
Yeah,
I know all the Frozen songs too.
Oh, so do I.
I threw the I threw your debut, the debut link to the YouTube link to your debut track into the chat if anyone wants to check it out.
Was that Let It Flow, or was that a different one?
Yeah, that was Let It Flow. Yeah.
There was Let It Flow, and then there was Olvar from Smash Mouth, and of course, let's not forget Rick Astley.
I'm just impressed that you don't use auto-tune.
Please, Chris, I told you. You didn't believe me.
I was wishing he'd use auto-tune.
So just a word of advice for anyone that works for an SI rather than an ISV and is thinking, oh, great, we don't have to worry about any of this stuff because we don't do the security review. You should take note, because we've had program architects run checkmark scans against our implementations for strategic customers. So you may find yourself suddenly having to justify false positives and the like, or justify your approach. So definitely follow the best practices outlined here.
Actually, good point, Keir. I used to advise teams ran that on their projects, but checkmarks was timing out and not able to process the amount of lines of code we had. But I used to actually say to people to do it as standard practice on the projects we were delivering. But yeah, it's a good idea.
It is. I mean, you can get the PMD tool, can't you? There's extensions for the various editors.
CLI scanner, the CLI, the plugin to the Salesforce CLI has the PMD Apex rules in it, and also ESLint. And I think there's one other thing in there. That's actually pretty good. It's reasonably straightforward to run as well.
Yeah, there's a VS Code extension, I think, for the PMD one too. It does. I mean, I probably wouldn't have it running all the time because it can slow down. Well, I've experienced it slow down with VS Code. But yeah, the CLI tool, having it in your flow makes perfect sense, I think.
And I just put a link in there for anybody that wants to try S4 out. You guys give it a shot, and if anybody wants to go farther than the free trial level, just talk to us. We'll open it up for you if we can.
And for static code analysis, our old friend Lorenzo's Clayton is still available. I think there's a free level of scanning.
Yeah, that's still going.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we have time, I can do the song about my app too.
Thank you very much, Amnon, for your session again from on behalf of all of us.